Hey, kia ora, Nathan. Welcome to the Nelson Pod.
Talofa, it's good to be here.
Good to have you here. Hey, you are facing a bit of change in your life. You had the God Zone earlier this year, and after nearly 25 years of adventure racing, you're going to step back a bit. Tell us about that.
Yep, that is true. So before the Godzone race this year down in Fiordland, I said to my teammates that that's it for me. It's time to sort of hang up the boots. And it'd be fair to say that I think their first reaction was it's probably not true, because I have said that before, or certainly made that threat. But they know me well enough now to know that I wouldn't make such a claim unless I sort of meant it. So so it was a nice way to finish up, really, racing an expedition race in a beautiful part of New Zealand, and with the team that I've spent a lot of time racing with internationally.
So over sort of nearly, 23, 24 years, something like that, how many of these races have you actually done?
I think it's about 80. I started racing expedition length races in 1999 when a big New Zealand race called the Southern Traverse came to Nelson. And I'd been thinking about doing those races for a few years before that, but just hadn't really got myself organised. But when the race came to Nelson, I was like, oh, well, I can't miss this one. And that just set the wheels in motion, really. That just went from year to year, and next thing it was 10 years, and then went on to 20, and brings us through to present day.
And here we are. So 80 races. How many of them would you have won?
Most of them. We have been an incredibly successful team, all the teams that I've raced in. So at a guess, I would say at least 60 of them. Like, our winning record is pretty high, especially in recent years, especially in the last sort of 10 to 12 years. We've been really successful. So it's been great being in a super competitive team.
And your career's taking you all over the world?
Yeah, it has. I've been really fortunate to travel to all the continents, really, except for Antarctica, racing, traveling, training. So it's been amazing. I think it's over 30 different countries now that I've raced in. And I guess we're a little bit more carbon conscious these days about where we travel, but certainly back in those days it was, get around the world and to explore these amazing places. So amazing opportunity, and probably one of the reasons why I kept racing for so long, actually, because you'd think, maybe this year I'll just do a bit less, but then you find out where the events actually are and go, well, I can't miss that.
Fantastic. How do you feel about being called the GOAT, the greatest of all time, when it comes to adventure racing? Because, if you Google search your name, that comes up a bit.
Yeah, it's probably a term. It's not a term I would use, to be honest. And I think I know why people say that, because you look at people's, race credentials, I guess, or race results, and it's pretty hard to argue with statistics. But adventure racing is a team sport, and I always feel a little bit uncomfortable when people sort of single me out and say, oh, this guy is a step above anyone else or anything else. I don't really think that's true. I think our team is quite possibly the greatest adventure racing team of all time. If it's describing the team, I feel quite proud and comfortable with that. If it's about me, I was like, oh no, I don't think so.
Okay. And how much are you going to miss the team?
Well, we're still good friends, and I just think we've shared so many amazing experiences together that we'll always be in touch, and we'll probably still do a lot of adventures. In fact, I was racing with one of my teammates just in a kayak race in Marlborough Sounds on Saturday. But what I will miss is being in that, I guess, high stimulus, high pressure, very exciting sort of race environment. Especially when you do travel to a foreign country and you go on this big, essentially this sort of mini expedition, really, to do something. And it's just great being part of a performing team. And that's one of the things that's definitely kept me motivated over the years is being part of that team, and just being in a team that has a constant drive, I guess, for sort of excellence and doing the best for the team. And, obviously, and when we're overseas, doing the best for our country.
Sure. I imagine all that excitement, all that adrenaline, the endorphins you get from the whole thing, it must be quite a addictive sort of cocktail, really. Do you feel like you did get addicted to adventure racing?
I think so. I guess the term addiction, I don't know if it's by definition if it'd be an addiction, but I think you do get used to being in that highly dynamic an exciting environment. Like, it's an interesting thing to do, is to go to like an event racing world champs. Like the last one I went to was in Paraguay in September. So you go to an interesting country, and then you go to an interesting part of an interesting country, and then you're there with all these international teams, and you go out on this kind of epic adventure, and you're racing through the I guess the backcountry or the wilderness of Paraguay. So they're amazing experiences to go and do. And I think if you're an adventurous person, it feeds that need really. And then it's being part of the team and things. But for me, a big part of it is the training as well. Like, I really enjoy the training for the events, and that's probably been one of the things that has kept me going. Is that I like having a reason to go out and be fit and strong and just do stuff in the outdoors. And if you're doing those races or committing to those races, especially at the level that we've been racing at, then it does require quite a lot of time. You have to invest a lot in getting yourself ready.
There must have been times though, like 80 races. There must have been times you found yourself on the sort of side of a mountain, thinking, it's cold, I'm tired, I've got blisters maybe. What am I doing here?
I've heard it said before that, for women at least, that they sort of compare it to childbirth. Apparently when you're giving birth to a child, they'll often say, well, I'm never doing this again. But a few years later, they're often giving birth to another child. So the human body does have an amazing ability to sort of forget pain and discomfort and just filter out that and leave you with the good memories. And event racing is pretty similar. There are some races where you actually can enjoy just about the whole thing. And then it's just a bit of a fun trip away and a good race. But in most of the races, there's usually periods of discomfort and suffering that you can't avoid. And that's almost inevitable if you're a team that is trying to win a sort of a major race. But it's also, I guess, the lure of the challenge as well. Like, I think event races, they're not alone, but I think event races by definition are people who seek out hard things to do. And then when you're in those moments of challenge and controversy and hardship, in some ways that's what you signed up for. And that's the test really. And that's the part that I think is quite engaging, and it's sort of this problem solving thing. You've got to try and figure out, how do I push through this? And it probably motivates you as well to just go, well, maybe it's exposed a few holes in my training. So, for the next race, maybe I'll do a little bit more of this, and then I won't suffer so much on this particular thing.
Have there been times though when you thought actually the suffering's too much and maybe something went wrong and you felt like your life was at risk?
I don't think I've ever felt my life's been at risk. Events racing, we've definitely seen some dangerous things, and we've been in some precarious, dangerous situations. Just route finding, and we find out that we're on the edge of a bluff or something, and it's either go back or just sort of take this little risk and climb across, or crossing rivers. Sometimes we have had a probably the closest we've got to losing a teammate was trying to cross a flooded river in a race. That was a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Where was that?
But that was actually in Wanaka in New Zealand. Yeah, in one of the Godzone races some years ago. And I guess that's the thing, when you're racing, you're not always thinking, as sensibly or as smart as you would be if you were just out there tramping or something. If you were tramping, you go, well, look, let's just wait for the river to subside and we'll cross it in the morning. But when you're racing, you sort of feel like you're compelled to keep moving forward on the course.
What actually happened on that river?
What actually happened in the end was that two of my teammates got across it, and then I was trying to tell the remaining persons, there's four of us in the team, that it's probably not a good idea to cross. I didn't want to cross it. I felt that it was an unnecessary risk. And then they actually tried to cross and got swept away. But one of my teammates on the other riverbank, they managed to rescue them, but they were actually hurt in the process. So it was pretty ugly. And then I just wasn't willing to cross. For me, it was a risk I wasn't willing to take. And so the whole team moved upstream, just started walking upstream. I was on one side of the river and the team was on the other. But just a few kilometres up higher, we got above this particular gorge, and I basically crossed the river in sort of knee-deep, slow-moving water and rejoined them.
Has there been one race that particularly stood out at the end of the race when you crossed the finish line? Is there one that you sort of go to when you think about the greatest feeling you got from all your racing?
Not really. It's a good question, but when I sort of think back on my career of event racing, different races kind of pop up at different times. I know the World Champs in France in 2012 was particularly sweet because we had a lot of obstacles to overcome in that race. Just things went wrong. And we actually won it in the end, and we beat the reigning world champions at the time, who were French, and the French are very good at adventure racing. So, yeah, that's one thing that often makes me feel quite good. I always smile when I think of that race because we actually beat the French in France when they were the defending world champs.
How did they take it?
I don't think they were too thrilled about it, which was probably made it even better for us. A few years ago, we had a big race called Eco Challenge, World's Toughest Race in Fiji. That was really special. Like racing in the Polynesian Islands is always nice. It's kind of feels a little bit like you're racing at home. You know, the Pacific Islanders are always cheering for New Zealand teams. But yeah, I guess the thing is that there's amazing parts of every race wherever you go, and perhaps it's more those stages that you sort of remember, or you think, no, that was an amazing thing to have experienced.
So a hard thing to step away from in lots of ways. What has it been that has led you to make the call now?
I think a number of things have made me decide that it's time to step away. I mean, the reality is that I recently turned 51, and I've noticed that I'm not the athlete that I was when I was 40. So it's not like all of a sudden I've woken up and gone, I can't do this anymore. But I've noticed there's just a decline in my top end speed and, recovery and things. And I know I could keep racing adventure races for a few more years, but I guess I've sort of had to ask the question, like, what is the point? Our team's been hugely successful. We've won all the races we've wanted to win, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of goals left for me to try and achieve in the sport. Well, none actually. And so that's part of it. The other thing I think is that there's other things that I want to do in life. And, while I am still really capable and physically active, and I wouldn't use the word young, but not too old, perhaps is a better way of saying it.
Young adjacent.
Exactly. Then I think, it's probably good now to kind of step away while I still really enjoy the sport and enjoy lots of things about it, but know that this gives me plenty of time to kind of do the other things I want to do. And I think maybe another way of describing it is when I look back on, my sort of adult years, certainly my 30s and 40s, if I look back on those years, they were very much about adventure racing. And I think at some point in the future, when I look back on my 50s, I actually don't want that to be about adventure racing. I want that to be about other things.
Okay, what are your 50s going to be about then?
Well, I've got 3 children, and they are all teenagers. Right now, they're 16, 18, and 20. And so very soon that, they'll have another round of birthdays and they're out of here. So I think for my wife, Jodie, and I, that's an opportunity for us to, sort of re-look at how we want to kind of live. I guess the last couple of decades, for me, have been largely about adventure racing, but I think as parents, a big part of that's been about parenting and raising a family. And so I think Jodie and I just want a bit of space to and we just want to declutter things so that we can kind of, just map out really and keep our options open as to how we want to be through our 50s. And business-wise, I'm quite busy. We have an events company that runs a number of major sporting events, and Real Meals, a freeze-dry food company, which is based here in Nelson. And I think, now it just feels like a good time to, just sort of back off, I guess, the sports side of things and just put a little bit more time and energy into those business things.
Speaking of business, has adventure racing been lucrative for you after all these years? Did it work out well?
Yeah, it did. Adventure racing did work out well for me. It was a combination of things. It was through different periods. It's been prize money. There has been some periods where adventure racing did actually pay pretty well, and then I guess it just you get into the other side of it with sports endorsements and sponsorship and different things like that. So that is another reason why I kept racing, is it was a commercially sensible thing for me to be doing.
Yeah. It was your job.
Yeah, it was. It has been my job. Yeah, I've been professional for a number of years, and adventure racing has been amazing for me and the family.
For a while there were some concerns about your ticker. How's your heart these days?
Heart is good at the moment, and long may it stay that way, but the condition I have does have a tendency to come back. So, yeah, that's not that's not a significant reason why I've probably decided to step away, but it is another factor as well. It's kind of like, I've, made my heart do a lot of beats over its years, and probably doing a few less is not going to hurt me too much.
For sure. What about other leadership roles? Have you considered putting your hand up for other things?
I haven't seriously considered putting my hand up for anything more than what's on my plate at the moment. I'm the patron of Whenua Outdoors. So,
which is kind of where it all started, right, for you?
It was on the outdoors, yes. Yeah, that was the sort of starting point. Well, maybe not necessarily the starting point, but certainly where the pathway became sort of clearer for me. I got a lot more clarity as to where I wanted to go in my life as a result of being at Whenua. And I guess just with the different things with our companies and around that kind of events racing stuff, it feels to me at the moment that there's a lot going on, and that has been a common question. Well, not your question, but a question that people have asked me is like, what am I going to do now that I'm events racing? And I think that's actually quite a significant question, because it's not like I'm stopping events racing and trying to replace that space with anything else. I think I'm actually stopping events racing just to have less things on.
For sure. Have you ever been approached by a political party?
I have not been approached by a political party. No.
Surprised.
Yeah.
I thought you'd be a great candidate, to be honest.
I'd probably enjoy the campaigning, but beyond that, I'm not sure if I'd be very good at it or if I'd enjoy it that much.
Oh, well, maybe something to think about. Give it some time. You never know.
Yeah.
We need good people in politics. Awesome. So you feeling excited about all this, space that you're going to have in your life?
It is. It's really exciting, and it's amazing. I think a lot of people will probably resonate with this, is that when you do actually sort of create a little bit of space, some of the things that will just sort of start to pop up into that space, and that's happened for me already. There's been some new opportunities, and I think people are going, oh, Nathan's not racing anymore. I wonder if you'd be interested in this or this. So there's some quite exciting opportunities that have sort of come by me, and some of them I'm sort of looking a bit more closely at and things. But no, it just feels great just to have I guess just one quite big thing. Yeah. Just put to the side.
So you've got at least one other member of the family who's getting into the adventure game, and that's Zefa, your son, who's going to the world champs for orienteering, right?
That's right. So, first of all, I'd say that all three of our kids are all pretty active in the outdoors, and they've all actually represented New Zealand orienteering. But Zefa at the moment does have the biggest goals and the biggest things happening. He is very soon heading to Europe for the Junior World Orienteering Championships. So, it is, I guess, in a sense, following on. When I was his age, I was a mountain bike racer. So. And so was Jody, actually. So, and we were sort of heading off to World Mountain Bike Champs and World Cup races and things. So, it's a similar pathway.
Right. Is that exciting to watch?
It is exciting. I mean, I think for me, it's just awesome to see, any young people really just passionate about something and setting their mind towards goals and chasing dreams, and to know that, that my son is sort of sees benefit in that or shares in those beliefs is great. Yeah, it's nice.
Does it worry you at all?
Does it worry me?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy gig, like, competing at that level.
No, it doesn't worry me. I think that you can learn so much from sport. You can learn lots from everything, but sport definitely can teach you some great lessons and prepare you for other things in life. So I think it's just a great experience, and traveling I think is good. I mean, like I mentioned before, that these days we're a bit more carbon conscious about getting on planes and racing around the world. But I think that aside, certainly for young people, like I've probably done my fair share, but I think for young people that can they expand their perceptions and can often put things in perspective. What how amazing it is to live in New Zealand and various things. So I think it's great that the young people out there doing these things, and particularly proud that he's out there doing it.
Sweet. Well, Zefa is actually with us right now, so we're going to bring him into the studio. Talo Falava, Zefa. Grab a seat. So, what do you think about? Did you learn anything about your dad just then, or have you heard it all before?
No, I've heard it all.
So how are you feeling about going off to Romania? Is that right?
Yeah, that's where the Junior Worlds is.
And what does it actually involve? Because I actually don't know much about orienteering. What do you actually do?
So in orienteering, it's an individual sport, and there's 3 disciplines. One's the sprint, which is a short race in the city. It probably takes about 20 minutes or something, and maybe about 3 to 5k. So that's quite a short race. And then you have the middle, which is in the forest, probably about 5k. And then the long, which is personally my favorite, probably about an hour to an hour and a half in the forest.
Right.
And orienteering, orienteers don't like to describe it this way, but I call it treasure hunt racing. So you get a map, and you probably have about 20 checkpoints, and there's a certain order that you have to get them, and it's just the fastest time you can run around those checkpoints.
And what is it that you particularly like about the long bit?
I think the long is, if you make a mistake, there's more time that you can make it up. If you make a mistake in the middle of the sprint, you're most likely out of the competition.
Right. Cool. And how long have you been doing it?
I started orienteering when I was seriously orienteering at about 10. So at least 8 years now.
Right.
Competitive, yeah.
Brilliant. And how do you feel representing New Zealand?
I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, that's good. I know, Nathan, like back in the day when I was on radio, I remember talking to you a few times about the impact of pushing your body to the limit and hearing about the hallucinations that you'd sometimes experience. Did those keep happening, or do they sort of go away?
Oh, they're just to do with the sleep deprivation in an adventure race. So thankfully, we actually got wiser the more we raced, and we realised that taking more sleep more regularly in the races actually prevented those essentially the hallucinations, because that was just from extreme sleep deprivation. So yeah, to be honest, in the last 10 or so years, no, I haven't had any real sleep-related issues from racing. But yeah, prior to that, yeah.
What was the craziest hallucination you had while competing?
Oh, there's been a number of them. They're quite random. One of them, I remember biking down a road in Tibet, and the road markers that you see on the side of the road. Each one of those was a small child, and that every time I got close, they would sprint across the road in front of me. So I was basically yelling out at these kids to stop running in front of me, and like trying to ride around all these small children. And I guess so. Yeah, it was at night. They're normally at night, because I think what happens is your mind just plays tricks on you. And I remember one race up in Nelson Lakes one year. I was walking through the forest and I saw a perfectly brand new, excellent condition mass sport lawnmower sitting out in the middle of the forest. And I was trying to tell my teammates about this amazing lawnmower that was out there. But usually everyone else knows that that person's just suffering from hallucinations, so they often just go along.
Right. So, Zefa, what do you think about this? Do you worry about this kind of thing? Like when you push yourself to that extreme limit, things like this happen? Have you ever had a hallucination like this?
Nah, not really. The longest orienteering event that I ever did was about 3 hours, so I don't get those.
Right. Would you like to step up to those full adventure races in time?
Maybe. I don't really know. I would like to do some maybe like 48-hour ones. Maybe not a week, but the 24-hour ones I would like to try, yeah.
Right. Do some people say it's a bit unfair because you've got like a genetic advantage because Nathan's your dad and Jodie's your mum? Do you ever hear that?
No.
No. Okay. Are you one of those people who trains a lot?
I do train a bit. Try to.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say I train a lot, but
Okay.
I just let him sort of do what he needs to do. He knows a lot more about his sport than I do, is the reality. When I was young, I think I've probably been a bit more sort of obsessive about the things I've done, a bit more intense. So when I was his age, when I was a mountain bike racer, I would say I was training a lot more than what Zefa trains for going for his world champs. But they're different sports and we're different people, and it's quite possible that I was actually doing more training that I needed to, or I was possibly overtraining. So I don't know. But no, Jody and I just kind of let Zefa do his thing. At some stage, if he wants any help or advice, he knows that he can come to us. But he seems pretty happy just
Doing his thing.
Yeah. So we just give him that space.
Sure. And Zefa, do you have any particular goals for Romania?
Well, last year my best result was 14th in the long and 17th in the middle. So I'd really just say my goals would be trying to match that or progress. And yeah.
And do you spend a bit of time checking out the competition?
Not really. I know most of the competitors, and some of the older ones are too old to be in our grade. So, yeah.
So right now you're 18. Yep. And so what does the future hold for you, do you think, beyond the World Champs? What do you want to be doing maybe next year?
Next year I have one more year in the juniors, and then after that I would like to maybe try and get into the seniors with just the open category.
Do you want to stick around Nelson and Tasman?
Well, I might go to Christchurch, but yeah, keep my options open. So
sounds good. And you've got this event coming up. Tell us about that.
So on the 13th of June, I believe, I was just doing a speech to help raise money for Zefa. It's pretty expensive going to Europe. He's actually going, where do you go first? To Bulgaria for the European Youth Champs, and then to the Junior World Champs in Romania. And then Zefa's actually he's a reserve for the Open men's team for the World Orienteering Championships in Switzerland. And then plus the possibility of a training camp for Junior Worlds next year in Czechoslovakia. So it's pretty expensive to get around. So we sort of figured that we'll try and do a bit of fundraising and try and make it, kind of fun and interesting. And so I'm just doing a talk at the Rutherford, and the theme is unbeaten. So now that I've finished racing, I can start to share some of our secrets as to why our team has been so dominant, especially internationally. And essentially we've been unbeaten for 10 years, for a decade. And it's quite an extraordinary story, I think. And so I'll just be sharing that story. And, if obviously anyone who's interested in adventure racing, they'll be able to take a few things away. But we'll try and make it as interesting for people who are not necessarily adventure racers as well. So, I think there's a lot of, just little gems of things that, that work for us, adventure racing in that team environment that I think just translate to lots and lots of different things in life. So it should be good.
Where do we get tickets?
Tickets are online, and they are on, I think the Little Reggie is the website you can go to, or you can go through It's On, the the Nelson thing. But I can't remember the actual littlereggie.com, I think it is, or .co.nz, something like that. But I'm sure if people search it out, they'll find it.
Easy to find, and there's still some tickets available.
Yeah, I don't think it will sell out. It's at the Rutherford, and if there's more people keen, they'll just put out more seats, I think. So, yeah, it's a great venue, and there'll be lots of imagery from all around the world of our team out there in some pretty amazing places. So
excellent.
It'll be good.
Sweet. Hey, we'll have a great time. Are you looking forward to that? I know you'll have heard it all before, but, is it still going to be fun? Choice. Hey, well, guys, thank you very much for coming on the Nelson Pod. We really appreciate it. We know you're both pretty busy dudes. Good luck with Romania. Good luck with the Rutherford and everything that's ahead for you, Nathan.
Brilliant. No, thank you. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to come along and share a little bit about ourselves, and most importantly about the night that we've got coming up.
It's inspiring stuff. You are very welcome. It's been great to have you.
Great. Thank you.